What's up YouTube? This is Crispy, otherwise known as Bystander X79, and I am coming to you with today's deck profile video on Darkworlds. Now, Darkworlds have been around for a while. They recently got just a little bit of support in the last couple of core booster sets with 2 new trap cards. This deck has always been fun because you get various effects when things are being sent to the graveyard, whether it be by your own effect or by your opponent's card effect, and one of the new traps turns their effects into you discard a card from your opponent's hand, which can trigger a whole lot more effects. I can tell you right now, in my experience, this deck has always been fun. It can beat your opponent by itself. If it extends into the extra deck, it gets even nuttier. And I just personally can't wait to show you this. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into this build. As always, we're going to be doing the monsters first. First monster on the list. 1 copy of Beige, the Vanguard of Darkworld. Now, what does Beige do? Whenever it's discarded to the graveyard, whether it be by your effect or by your opponent's effect, it special summons itself back to the field. This is actually a very important effect, considering that it can turn around and be utilized to bring out the big boss of the deck, Grapha. Or even, in a pinch, a tribute summon. You don't want to see multiples of him, so 1 is enough. Alright, next card in the deck. 3 copies of Brow, Huntsman of Darkworld. Basically, whenever he's sent to the graveyard by your effect, you're drawing a card. If he's sent to the graveyard by your opponent's effect, you're going to draw a card and an extra one too. So he's your draw engine right there. I run 1 copy of Gold, the Warlord of Darkworld. Basically, whenever it's sent to the graveyard, you special summon it. If it's sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effects, you can bring this guy. You can special summon it, and then you can target up to 2 cards on your opponent's field and destroy them. Great field removal presence. Alright, then you have 3 copies of the big boss guy, Grapha, Dragon Lord of the Darkworld. Okay, now whenever Grapha can be special summoned out onto your field by returning 1 Darkworld monster on your field back to your hand, and then you can special summon it from the graveyard. Very cool. If it's sent to the graveyard by one of your card effects, you target 1 of your opponent's cards, pop it, and if it's sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you're going to randomly choose 1 card out of their hand. If it's a monster, you get to special summon it to your field. Awesome effects. Alright, and then I run 3 copies of Lucius, the Netherlord of Darkworld. What does Lucius do? Basically, you send it to the graveyard, it special summons himself. If he's sent by your effect, if you're sent by your opponent's effect, you're allowed to turn around and special summon a Darkworld monster right from your deck to the field. Okay. And then over here, you have Snow, the Unlight of Darkworld. Basically, what does Snow do? Snow, whenever it's sent to the graveyard by your effect, you search your deck for any Darkworld cards. If it's sent by your opponent's effect, you're targeting a monster in the graveyard, and you're going to special summon it. Pretty awesome effect. Taking away your opponent's resources. And last but not least, I do run 1 copy of Tour Guide of the Underworld. Tour Guide allows you to gain access into your browse, so you can access rank 3 plays. Well, that's it for the monsters, main deck monsters. Let's go off to the spells. Alright, first off, I run 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. Draw 2 cards, banish a dark attribute monster, since all the monsters in your deck are dark attribute. Very cool. My own one too, because you really don't want to be banishing that many of your monsters. And the other thing is that there's a whole lot other draw power in this deck, so you really don't need that many copies of this card. 2 is more than enough. Alright, a little bit of a tech card I have run in this card deck. I run 2 copies of Burial from a Different Dimension. What does this card do? Basically, it allows you to target up to 3 cards that were banished and return them back to the graveyard, which really helps out when you start getting the field spell drawer engine going, because you're going to be banishing a lot of stuff from your graveyard to get your drawers, and this guy returns the stuff to the graveyard so you can keep using that effect. You also run 3 copies of Darkworld Dealings. Basically, both you and your opponent discard a card, and then you basically draw a card. And because this thing discards 4 effects, you're going to be getting a lot of your Darkworld monsters' effects off of it. And of course we have 3 copies of Drag Down to the Grave. Basically you get to take a look at your opponent's hand, send 1 card to the grave, and then your opponent does the same thing to you, and then you both draw a card. Since it discards for effect. No, actually it doesn't discard for effect, but it allows you to load your graveyard, so it gives you insight to what your opponent has in their deck, in their hand. So next card, Foolish Burial. Send a card from your deck to the graveyard. Helps you get Grapha into the grave quickly, so you can just turn around and bounce stuff off to get them on the field. Of course, I run Monster Reborn. It is a staple spell now. Get some card back from the graveyard onto the field, so you can extend plays, or even get another Grapha play. And of course, I mentioned this before, we have the field spell, which is 3 copies of the Gates of the Darkworld. How does this card work? Basically, it targets a Darkworld, or a fiend type monster, excuse me. It targets a fiend type monster in your graveyard. You banish it, you discard 1 monster from your hand, and then you're allowed to draw a card. Since this is not a hard once per turn, you can actually activate multiple copies of this card in your turn and get multiple draws. Alright, that's it for the spells. On to the traps. Now this is one of the newest tech pieces that this deck can actually utilize, and that's called the Archfiend. What does it do? It allows you to turn around and target 1 level 5 or higher fiend type monster in your graveyard. That's going to be Grapha, Lucius, or even Gold. You discard a card from your hand, which is a discard by effect, which is insanely important for this deck because you get more effects off that, and then you're able to special summon the targeted monster onto the field. And no, this card does not equip itself to the targeted monster, so you actually use this card multiple times throughout the duel and be able to turn around, continuously bring back your monsters. I run 2 because you don't want to really see it that much, because there's a whole lot of other discard outlets in this deck. So next card I run is another new piece to this deck. It's Darkworld Brainwashing. What does this card do? Basically, as long as you have 3 or more cards in your hand, this card's effect can activate. Basically, you target a Darkworld monster on your field, bounce it back to your hand, and then what happens is that your opponent's card effect that they activate turns into discard a card from your opponent's hand effect. Feeds into the overall strategy of Darkworld's being able to pitch monsters to the graveyard to get multiple effects. Pitching a Lucius allows you to special summon it and get a Grapha out of your deck ASAP. Pitching a Gold can special summon it and pop 2 cards off the field. You're gonna see where I'm going. Forcing them to pitch a Grapha can actually get them to pops a card, and then you can also special summon a monster right from their hand, if that's all they have. Of course, with Drag Down in the Grave, you should be running 2 copies of Mind Crush. Having insight to your opponent's hand is insanely important, and Drag Down in the Grave gives you that. With Mind Crush, you'll be able to turn around and take 2 cards out of their hands and just rip apart any strategies they have. And of course, I run the Solemn package in there, so Solemn Judgment. And it gets a summon, spell, or trap. Solemn Strike negates inherit summons and monster effects. And Solemn Warning, which basically negates any summon that starts a chain. Alright, that's it for the main deck. On to the extra deck. The extra deck is mostly Xyz monsters with a few links that I've thrown in. First Xyz monster. 2 copies of Lair, the Sea Dragon. Now, Lair is insanely important for this deck because it allows you to target one of your banished monsters and bring it back onto the field. Actually, it allows you to target any level 4 or lower banished monsters, excuse me, and bring it back onto the field. And it's not just yours; it's also your opponent's as well. So you can target. It's kind of like a monster reborn for banished monsters. Let's just say that. Cool effect. All right. Phantom Knight Breaksword. Pop a monster off your opponent's field. Always good. Grand Pulse for the foot fence and knocking out back roll of scales. I run the Utopia package in this because, let's face it, it can help get over your opponent's monsters and do some serious damage. I also run another Utopia card, Utopia Beyond. What does this card do? Bring that card out, and it basically takes all your opponent's monsters and bottoms out their attacks until they leave the field and are brought back. And so that same card allows you to do some serious, massive amounts of damage. Try this card out. Okay, and of course I run Galaxy's Eye Cypher Dragon. It allows you to steal your opponent's monsters and build up Xyz. I also run number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. It's another Galaxy Eyes level rank 8 body. Cool thing about it is that it actually negates monster effects on it whenever it attacks. So that's always a good effect to actually have. Alright, you also have Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon to pop more cards off the field. Cypher Blade Dragon does the same thing. Number 95, Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. Mill the 3 cards to your graveyard. Force your opponent to banish 3 cards from the top of their deck. Helps you set up the grave, and it's a pretty big body as well. So now that's it for the Xyz monsters. For the links, I run 2 copies of Underclock Taker, which is right now the best Link 2 monster in the game. Anything it points to, you're able to turn around and target one of your opponent's monsters and reduce it by the monster that it points to's attack points. So just think about this thing pointed to a Grapha, which has 2800. Excuse me, not 2800. Which has 2700. Reduce the monsters. If the field spell's up, it's going to be 3000. So you're reducing it by 3000. So it does a lot of work. And of course, if you've seen this in my bumper, Cerulean Skull Dread, I can tell you right now, I love going into him with just 3 materials because just getting the extra special summon can help you get more monsters onto the field and this more battle damage onto it as well. With this plus the boost and the field boost, your Darkworld monsters are going to be insanely strong and hard to beat. Alright, so that's it for my Darkworld deck profile for the February 2018 format. Yeah, ban list still isn't out, but don't worry, as soon as it drops, you know your boy is going to turn around and have a review of the list and analyze the list as well, so be on the lookout for that whenever the ban list TCG Konami decides to drop the list. And until then, we're going to keep rolling on. So until my next video, guys, peace out.